welcome again to the Christian Arts and Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Newsom. I'm here today with my lovely wife, Deanna, and she's going to join me in a conversation about The Mandalorian. About a month ago, I believe it's about 4 weeks or so, Disney Plus released the second season of The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is a Star Wars television show that is exclusively on Disney Plus. Takes place approximately 5 years after Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, and 25 years prior to Episode 7. So it follows the adventures of a bounty hunter, a Mandalorian, not Boba Fett. If you're familiar with the Star Wars universe, it is not him. He is of the same group, the class of soldiers called the Mandalorians. And he discovers a child of the same species as Yoda, and everybody calls him Baby Yoda. He is probably the cutest MacGuffin that has been produced on TV or movies in a long while. And so everybody wants to watch the show for Baby Yoda. So just before we get into the conversation we're going to have, because we're going to have a conversation about Baby Yoda, mention the family friendliness of this. If you've not watched any of The Mandalorian and want to watch some, and thinking of it as possibly something you can watch with your family, know that there is standard Star Wars violence that you would get with your blasters and such. Not any gore. There have been some occasionally gross moments with creatures exploding and the flying goo all over the place. I would put it probably on par with Rogue One as far as the intensity and violence of it. So if you haven't seen Rogue One, just take Star Wars and bump it up a couple of notches and you get Rogue One. And that's about where Mandalorian is going to fall. So episode 2, actually it's episode 11, I think. It's the second episode of season 2, and they're numbering them. The numbering has continued since season 1. So it's the second episode of season 2. Finds Baby Yoda in some controversy. So the Mandalorian has agreed to ferry a frog lady, a species that is very frog-like, to another planet, and she has a container, a clear container full of water of unfertilized eggs. And she tells the Mandalorian that if she can't get these eggs to her husband, who is on the other planet waiting for her, in time for them to be fertilized, then her family line will end. And it's kind of unclear whether or not we're talking about just the line of her specific family, or if we're talking about the entire species, if this entire species line or not. Is this the end of her species or just the end of her family line if she can't get these eggs fertilized? So the controversy is this, that throughout the episode, Baby Yoda is seen eating a few of these eggs. Now, this is not any spoilers, really. This is all played for comedy, so this really doesn't have anything to do with the plot. So Baby Yoda's seen eating some of these eggs. And it's really caused a whole lot of controversy. There's the whole cancel culture that is saying that Baby Yoda has essentially violated this frog lady's rights to reproduce or something. I'm not entirely sure what it is. It's just like he has crossed the line by eating these eggs, which are her last chance to further her family line or possibly even save her species. So that's where we are. So what are your thoughts on
it? It's ridiculous. No, in the episode, it made it clear that it was her family line, so it's not the entire species. It's just, it's hard to have words for it because it's fiction. And I have no words. I mean, I can't put into words the ridiculousness of people being so upset, as upset as I've seen some of the posts and things. Why are you so upset over this work of fiction?
So Parker J. Cole wrote an article for Speculative Fiction .net, I believe it is. I'll post a link to her article in the description, saying that, comparing this, what people have said to this, to abortion. So basically, she is making the connection. How can people be so upset over a Muppet
Right.
eating unfertilized eggs of a fictional character
Right.
in a fictional universe,
Yes.
played for laughs, and not be upset over the killing of thousands of unborn fertilized children happening in real life?
Right.
So how did we get there as a culture?
I don't know and just I'm not that old, and to watch the progression of this kind of mentality in our society and in our culture it's really disturbing to me.
Well, there's this pseudo morality. This is postmodern pseudo morality that has happened. So you see the progression. So postmodernism is I get to decide what is right and what is true for myself.
Right.
And so we see a progression over the past 40 or so years where it has taken from that, and then you see people are wanting their truths to be respected.
Right.
And then it changed, it progressed into they want their truths to be accepted. And then it progressed to truths need to be, individual truths should be celebrated. And now we're seeing it change again to where people are saying a person's truths should be defended.
Even if they're untrue?
Even if they're true. And that's the point. That's the point. It's not about what is objectively true. It's about what's true for an individual. And so there's this whole culture of pseudo-morality that says if it's true for you, then I have an obligation, I have a duty to defend your truth. Which is how we get into a situation where people are attacking Baby Yoda because this frog lady's truth was this was her only chance for her family to survive. But they can still defend a woman's right to choose because that's her truth. It's their truth to choose whether or not to have the child. So they are defending the truth, even if there is no objective standard to truth.
That makes my head hurt. But it's sad, though, because, I mean, that is just the basis, is that, we no longer have black and white truth. And fact is fact. It's just... I guess I don't know, and maybe I'm not... I don't know lots of things. I mean, I'm pretty smart and I'm pretty decently educated, but it just my brain cannot wrap around how somebody can just declare truth. Like, okay, well, my cup is this. This is not purple. This is aquamarine, and this is my truth. It's not. That doesn't make it true. It's purple. I don't.
And in today's cancel culture, if anybody were to disagree with you, I could cancel them. You're not agreeing with her truth.
Oh,
Don't care if you have anything to back it up. If you're not agreeing that she's calling it aquamarine, if you want that to be aquamarine, it can be aquamarine to you, and nobody can tell you otherwise.
It makes me sad. It really does, because with this, as far as entertainment is concerned, with this, whatever you want to call this happening in culture, we've lost the ability to have comedy. We've lost the ability to create good fiction at the risk of offending people. And I mean, there's a difference in things that are truly offensive and things like this fictional. I mean, there's no harm here. It's I don't know. Some people would say it's a fine line, but there's a huge difference.
I saw somebody bring up that there was a comparison made to what Baby Yoda does to eating chicken eggs, unfertilized chicken eggs, and and that same thing that I saw also said that it made it worse, that the cancel culture went even more crazy
because somebody compared it to eating chicken eggs.
Because it was compared to eating chicken eggs.
Well, how many people eat chicken eggs every day for breakfast, lunch, dinner? I mean, it's the food that we're given. We're provided.
But this kind of thing, it's going to collapse on itself. Eventually, they're going to start eating each other.
I'm sorry.
No pun intended.
I'm sorry. All of these visions of the time machine are in my brain now, and I'm just like, okay, well, there you go.
Yeah. Eventually, it's going to, I mean, Jesus said something about this, house divided against itself can't stand. And eventually it's going to start attacking itself. We're already seeing some of this. I don't know if you've seen any of this or not. But there is some far left, almost to the extreme far left groups.
Falling off the edge of the flat world. Right.
Almost. And they're associated with, now I'm not going to say they're part of the Black Lives Matter movement, but they're associating themselves with it. Okay? And they are arming themselves in a lot that reminds us in a lot of ways of the Black Panther movement of the 60s.
Right.
So they're becoming very militaristic, and they're arming themselves, and they are self-associating with the Black Lives Matter movement. Okay. So this is on the far left, and these are in the same area of people who want to restrict gun control. So we're already seeing factions within the same cultural movement, one that wants to arm itself and one that wants to take guns away from each other, and we're beginning to see some friction there.
Yeah.
And they're going to eventually start eating each other. I think Baby Yoda has sort of brought to the forefront some of the ridiculousness.
Yeah.
But what do you do?
That's a good question. I mean, what do you do? But I mean, anyone who studies history in its truth would know that truthfully we have these cycles and cultures and things where it happens and it never ends well. I mean, you always are going to have to go through a crisis in culture before things get better. And I mean, if you study history, you see those things. I mean, you can see it from the beginnings of recorded history, how it happens. And I don't know that anybody ever really realizes it or thinks about it until you get to that point where you're on the verge of the crisis. And, it's scary. And, I mean, the only help, the only help and the only hope is Jesus and truth. And this is the way. I mean, the truths of Scripture and the truths of God are the only beacon that we have to help keep us sane in all of this.
That's where we get our objective morality. And if you have a standard of morality from which to measure everything else, then this is not an issue.
Yeah.
So how do we teach our children when they're getting these mixed signals over Baby Yoda? They love Baby Yoda, and then they're hearing and seeing, especially if your kids are on social media and Twitter. I'm sure they've seen all about canceling Baby Yoda. What would you suggest about teaching our kids through this?
I mean, you have to talk to them. You have to have those open lines of communication. You have to be willing to answer their questions truthfully and scripturally, and make sure that they understand, where we find truth, not objective truth, not my truth, not your truth, not
the dog's truth.
Not the dog's truth. I was looking for the dog. I mean, this is truth, and this is the way, it was created to be, and to help them understand that. At the same time, as we are teaching them this truth, helping them to know that we can disagree with people who don't believe the truth as it's given to us, but we still love the people. And I think that's one of the things that, all of this cancel culture and everything, it's all just kind of stemming out of the fact that we no longer know how to disagree without it being declared hate. We no longer know how to disagree without, blocking people out of our lives. It's just, we don't know how to discuss in healthy ways and agree to disagree.
There's a serious lack of critical thinking.
Yeah.
People don't know how to think through things logically, which is what Parker Cole was bringing up. You got on the one hand people saying Baby Yoda's wrong for eating unfertilized eggs, and then on the other hand saying it's wrong to end abortion. If you just take a moment, if you really just take 5 minutes and apply some logical, critical thinking between the two situations, you've got a real moral contradiction going on. Right. And it can't stand. You've got to have an objective morality from which to approach things. If you're going to be mad about Baby Yoda, you've got to be mad about abortion.
Right. And not only that, going a little more, maybe ridiculous here, but, according to their logic and their reasoning, we should all be vegan completely because, don't eat the chicken eggs.
No, don't, because the chickens, they have rights too.
Right. And that hamburger over there, no, you shouldn't have done that. That was just not a nice thing to do. Nothing against people who are vegetarian and vegan. That's just the point I'm trying to make. It's,
It's not a point of morality.
Right.
It's a point of preference. And that's where some of the confusion, I guess, comes in nowadays, is that people are confusing preference with morality. You might prefer something, but that doesn't mean it's a moral obligation for somebody else.
Yeah, right.
But there are moral obligations on all human beings. They're not preferences. Right. So they've confused the two. They're calling what should be moral a preference, and what should be a preference morality. and there's just, how do we get back to an education of logic and morality? This whole Baby Yoda thing just comes right back to the fact that there's no logic being applied, and there is questionable morality being applied at the same time. Yeah. So, if you're gonna talk to your kids about it, you gotta talk to them about morality. You gotta talk to them about objective truths. Talk about the standards that that God puts forth in the Bible. But you can also talk about forgiveness, right?
Right.
Because isn't that what the whole cancel culture is about? One strike, you're out.
Right. That's not how it works.
I mean, no chance to adjust or change course if you don't conform to our standard or our perception of morality, then you can no longer participate or play in our games. We won't play with you if you don't play by our rules, basically.
Yeah.
And so there's no second chances. There's no correction. And to be fair, in the third episode, the one following baby Yoda eating the eggs.
Don't give any spoilers away.
Like, it's not a spoiler.
Okay.
But if you worry about a spoiler, then just mute the thing for about 30 seconds. But in the following episode, we see Baby Yoda playing with one of the hatched, fertilized babies.
Right.
And the expression on the Muppet's face. Okay, so I said that. The expression on the Muppet's face is very joyful, very happy. It's he has learned a lesson.
Right.
He's learned a lesson. And he spends the rest of the episode looking for food because he doesn't want to eat any more eggs.
Right.
Okay? So maybe Jon Favreau, the director and primary writer for a lot of this, Jon Favreau, if you don't really know who that is, the guy behind The Mandalorian, the guy who people are claiming is saving Star Wars.
Right.
If you're not sure who that is, if you've ever seen the Iron Man movies, he plays Tony Stark's chauffeur, Happy. He's responsible for the Jungle Book live-action movie, the Lion King, quote-unquote, live-action movie.
Not a lot of live action.
And now he's been given The Mandalorian. He's in charge of that. If he had Baby Yoda learn that lesson at the end of the second episode, it might not have been as big of an uproar. But instead, at the very end of the second episode, Baby Yoda pulls another egg out of his pocket and eats it.
Right.
And then we roll credits.
Right. I snuck one.
So, anyway, we just wanted to talk about that. Talk about Mandalorian and the controversy around what Baby Yoda did.
Yeah. Just bring some further attention to the dangers of cancel culture, because it's a dangerous road.
You can't cancel people. That's my thing. If you're gonna say, oh, you disagree with me, and this is your preference or your morality, and it doesn't agree with mine, I'm just going to cancel you.
It's like you're not a Cyberman. You can't delete them.
Right. You can't delete them. You're not a Cyberman. Or if you've done something wrong against me, then I'm going to cancel you. Or block you. Or ban you from whatever platform
right.
you're
And
connected on.
It's a difference. There are true things that necessitate, removing people, for a while, distancing your people. I mean, sometimes there's dangerous things there. But as far as a difference of opinion, which is what most of the cancel culture stuff is, it's just all over differences of opinion. I don't agree with you, therefore, but that can't be.
And what cancel culture wants you to do is conform. All right? So there's no restoration. And what the Bible teaches is a restoration process. If a brother or sister in Christ sins against you, then yes, there are consequences, but there's also a process of restoration. There's a process of forgiveness. There's a process to bring them back into the fold, so to speak, and restore them back to where they were. But what cancel culture wants is for people to conform rather than to be restored. So if somebody messes up, they say, I'm not going to, there's going to be consequences, sure, personally between the two people. But there's no process of restoration. The only way you can be restored is if you completely conform to the other person's point of view. So with Baby Yoda and with the Mandalorian, the only way some people are going to forgive Jon Favreau for what Baby Yoda did is if he edits it out and takes it out of that episode and re-releases a new version. He would have to conform.
Yes, but that's ridiculous because it's just ridiculous.
But that's what we're doing. So anyway, parents, know that this is what your kids are having to deal with. Cancel culture is rampant through social media. It's everywhere. Even if you don't even realize it, if they're not using that terminology, your kids are having to deal with, even our children as homeschoolers are having to deal with the ramifications of cancel culture in their own lives. So this is it. Be aware of it. Be aware that their cancel culture does not have an objective standard of morality. There's no logical process going on there. And guide your children to what the Bible has to say. Teach your kids about restoration and forgiveness, and teach your kids about looking to God and looking to the Bible for objective morality, and teach your kids how to have a good sense of humor when it comes to their entertainment. I mean, when we were growing up, we watched Alf, and Alf wanted to eat the cat. Lucky the cat. I mean, and there was one episode where he put the cat in the microwave and was going to microwave the cat. And what did we do? We laughed.
Right.
We laughed and we laughed and we laughed. Today, Alf would be canceled. That would have never happened today. We're robbing ourselves of so much just good-natured humor. Look. The world is hard. Life is hard. 2020 has been hard. If we can't laugh at hard things when they're presented to us in a ridiculous manner, just to sort of create some kind of levity in our own minds to help us approach difficult situations with the attitude that maybe it's not quite as bad as it could be. Maybe it's not quite that bad. If we can't laugh at certain things, then it's probably part of the reason we're having such a mental health crisis right now. People have forgotten how to have good humor in dark places. So learn how to take what could otherwise be a dark situation and find humor, especially in fictional situations. What's the humor? It's fiction. Have fun with it. It might bring a little light and a little levity to some of the dark places that you might be experiencing in your life. So help guide your children to this and teach them objective morality. Thank you so much for watching and listening, whether you're on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. And we will see you next time. This has been the Christian Arts and Entertainment Podcast with author, musician, and worship pastor Kevin Newsom. Thank you for joining us today, for your comments, and for subscribing. See you next time.